After paying to fix my in-laws' roof, I found my tools missing and they said, "We need them more." I smiled. Fine. I called the police and showed my receipts. They were arrested and I got compensated. Their words made me richer. So picture this, I'm sitting here with a beer in my hand, still kind of shaking my head at what went down last month. Y'all ain't gonna believe this story, but I swear on my mama's sweet tea recipe, every word is true. It all started when Hurricane Rita decided to throw a tantrum through our town. I'm talking about one of those storms that makes you question why humans thought it was smart to build houses out of anything lighter than concrete bunkers. Trees were doing backflips, power lines were playing jump rope with the wind, and my in-laws' roof looked like someone took a giant can opener to it. Now, let me paint you a picture of my in-laws. Think of the most entitled people you've ever met, multiply that by 10, then add a hefty dose of the world owes us everything attitude. My husband's parents have been giving me grief since day one, treating me like I'm some charity case who somehow tricked their precious son into marriage. For real though, these folks act like their kid is God's gift to womankind when he can barely remember to put the toilet seat down. Anyway, after the storm passed, I'm driving around checking on family because that's what decent people do, right? I pull up to their place and holy smokes, their roof looks like Swiss cheese had a baby with a disaster movie. Shingles everywhere, a tarp that's doing absolutely nothing, and water dripping into their living room like it's trying to start an indoor swimming pool. My husband's at work. He's got one of those jobs where you can't just bail when Mother Nature throws a hissy fit. So there I am, looking at my in-laws standing in their driveway with these pathetic expressions, and against every instinct screaming in my head, I offer to help fix their roof. Don't worry about it, I tell them, already mentally calculating how much this is going to cost me. I'll handle the repairs. Now, I should mention, I'm pretty handy with tools. My dad raised me right, teaching me that if something's broken, you learn to fix it yourself instead of crying about it. I've got a solid collection of tools that would make any Home Depot employee weep with joy. We're talking about a DeWalt drill set that cost me 3 paychecks, a Craftsman socket wrench collection that's my pride and joy, and a Milwaukee circular saw that cuts through lumber like butter. The very next morning, I load up my Ford F-150 with every tool I own, plus about $2,000 worth of roofing materials from Lowe's. Shingles, underlayment, nails, flashing, the whole 9 yards. I even grabbed some of those fancy ridge caps because I figured if I'm gonna do this job, might as well do it right. I show up at their place around 7 a.m. ready to work. The weather's perfect. Not too hot, slight breeze, perfect for roofing. I start hauling everything up onto their roof, which, let me tell you, is no joke when you're doing it solo. But I'm motivated, you know? Part of me is thinking maybe this will finally show them I'm not the useless daughter-in-law they think I am. For 3 days, I'm up on that roof from sunrise to sunset. I'm talking about some serious manual labor here, stripping off damaged shingles, replacing rotted plywood, installing new underlayment, laying down perfect rows of architectural shingles. My hands are raw, my back's screaming, and I've got more bruises than a hockey player, but I'm making progress. Update. Hey everyone, thanks for following my story so far. I'm getting lots of messages asking if I took photos of my work. Unfortunately, I was too focused on getting the job done to document everything properly. Big mistake on my part, but trust me, the story gets way more interesting from here. Anyone else ever had family members who made you question your life choices? During those 3 days, my in-laws are nowhere to be found. Not bringing me water, not offering lunch, not even a, "Hey, how's it going?" They're inside their air-conditioned house watching their soap operas while I'm literally fixing their home for free. But whatever, I tell myself. I'm doing this for my husband, not for them. On the 3rd day, I finally finished the job. And let me tell you, that roof looks absolutely gorgeous. Professional grade work that would have cost them at least $8,000 if they'd hired a contractor. Every shingle lined up perfectly. Proper flashing around the chimney, gutters cleaned and reattached. The whole house looks brand new. I'm exhausted but proud, you know? I climb down from the roof, start loading my tools back into my truck, and that's when I notice something weird. My toolbox feels lighter than it should. I open it up and immediately my heart sinks. Half my tools are missing. I'm talking about my good stuff too. The DeWalt drill set, gone. My favorite hammer that I've had for 10 years vanished. The Milwaukee saw, nowhere to be found. About $1,500 worth of tools just disappeared into thin air. I march up to their front door and knock. My father-in-law answers, and I can already tell by his smirk that something's up. "Hey," I say, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm missing some tools. You guys seen them anywhere?" He gets this look on his face, part guilty, part defiant, like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar but ready to fight about it. "Oh yeah," he says, casual as can be. "We kept some of your tools. We need them more than you do." I blink a few times, thinking maybe I misheard him. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," he continues, crossing his arms. "You've got plenty of tools at home. We don't have any, and now that our roof's fixed, we might need to do other projects around the house." My mother-in-law appears behind him, nodding. "Along like this makes perfect sense. Besides," she adds, "consider it payment for letting you practice on our roof. Payment for letting me practice." On the roof, I just spent 3 days and $2,000 fixing, for free. I stand there for a moment, feeling like I'm in some kind of alternate reality where basic human decency doesn't exist. These people just watched me bust my rear end fixing their house, using my own materials and tools, and now they're literally stealing from me and acting like they're doing me a favor. But here's the thing, I don't explode. I don't scream or throw a fit or do any of the things they probably expect me to do. Instead, I smile. A real big, genuine smile. "You know what?" I say, sweet as pie. That's fine. Y'all clearly need those tools more than I do. They look surprised by my reaction, like they were gearing up for a fight that never came. I turn around, walk back to my truck, and drive home. Now, some of y'all might be thinking I'm crazy for just walking away like that. But see, here's what my in-laws didn't know about me. I keep receipts for everything, and I mean everything. That little habit just became their worst nightmare. The moment I get home, I go straight to my filing cabinet and pull out every single receipt from the tools they stole. Purchase dates, serial numbers, warranty information, I've got it all. Documented like I'm running a small business. Then I grab the receipts for all the roofing materials I bought for their house. Next, I do something I should have done from the beginning. I call my insurance company. Turns out theft is theft, whether it's family or strangers. They tell me to file a police report and they'll investigate the claim. So I drive down to the police station with my folder full of receipts. The officer behind the desk is this no-nonsense woman who looks like she's seen every kind of family drama imaginable. Let me get this straight, she says after I explain the situation. You fixed their roof for free, and they stole your tools. As payment? That's exactly what happened, I confirm, sliding the receipts across her desk. She shakes her head. Ma'am, I've been doing this job for 15 years, and people never cease to amaze me with their audacity. Update. The police officer was incredible. She treated this like any other theft case and didn't dismiss it just because it was family. She said she'd seen similar situations before where relatives think they can get away with stealing because it's just family. I'm nervous about what comes next, though. What would you do if your own family members did this to you? The officer takes photos of all my receipts, gets serial numbers for the tools, and opens an official theft report. She explains that since the value of the stolen items exceeds $500, it's considered a felony in our state. We'll need to go over there and see if we can recover your property, she tells me. You want to ride along? Do I want to ride along? Oh, heck yes, I want to ride along. 20 minutes later, I'm sitting in the passenger seat of a police cruiser, pulling into my in-laws' driveway. They must see us coming because both of them are standing at their front door looking like deer caught in headlights. The officer gets out first, and I follow behind her. My father-in-law immediately starts blustering about how this is a family matter and the police shouldn't be involved. Sir, the officer says, cutting him off, theft is theft. Your daughter-in-law has filed a report for stolen property valued at over $1,500. That's a felony. My mother-in-law pipes up, but we're family. She can't have us arrested. The officer gives them this look that could freeze lava. Ma'am, family members don't get special exemptions from the law. Now, we can do this easy, or we can do this hard. Where are the tools? You should have seen how fast they scrambled to produce my tools. They drag everything out of their garage. My drill set, my hammer, my saw, even some smaller items I hadn't noticed were missing. Everything's there except for one socket wrench that apparently got misplaced. The officer inventories everything against my receipts while my in-laws stand there looking like they want to disappear into the ground. Once she confirms all the major items are accounted for, she turns to them. Here's what's going to happen, she says. You're both under arrest for theft. You have the right to remain silent. And just like that, I'm watching my in-laws get handcuffed in their own driveway. The same driveway where they watched me load up my truck with roofing materials just days earlier. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. As they're loading my in-laws into separate police cars, my father-in-law looks at me with this expression of pure disbelief. You actually called the cops on us? He shouts. Over some tools? I walk over to the car window and lean down so I'm at his eye level. No, I say, keeping my voice calm and steady. I called the cops because you stole from me, after I spent 3 days and $2,000 fixing your roof, for free. He starts to say something else, but the officer closes the car door and drives away. My husband calls me about an hour later, absolutely losing his mind. Apparently his parents used their one phone call to tell him what happened, but somehow in their version of events, I'm the villain who had them arrested over borrowing some tools. Babe, I tell him, sit down and let me explain exactly what happened. By the time I finish telling him the whole story, including the part about them saying they needed the tools more, and considering it payment for letting me practice, he's quiet for a long time. Finally he says, they really said that? About payment? Word for word. Another long pause. I'm so sorry. I had no idea they would do something like that. Here's the thing about my husband. He's a good guy who's spent his whole life making excuses for his parents' bad behavior, but even he can't spin this one into something reasonable. The next few days are a whirlwind. My insurance company processes my claim and cuts me a check for the full value of the stolen tools, plus replacement cost coverage since some of my tools were discontinued models. We're talking about a check for over $3,000, but that's not even the best part. See, when my in-laws hired a lawyer to fight the theft charges, they made a huge mistake. They tried to argue that the tools were payment for the roofing work I did, which means they admitted, in writing in legal documents, that I performed thousands of dollars worth of professional roofing services. Their lawyer probably thought he was being clever, but he just handed me the best Christmas present ever, because now I have legal documentation that I provided professional contracting services to my in-laws, so I do what any reasonable person would do. I send them an invoice. 3 days of professional roofing work calculated at the going rate for contractors in our area, plus materials, plus equipment rental fees for the tools they tried to keep. Grand total, $12,400. Update. I know some of you are wondering if I'm being too harsh, but honestly, I gave them every chance to make this right. They could have apologized and returned my tools when I first asked. Instead, they doubled down and tried to justify stealing from me. At what point do you stop being the bigger person and start protecting yourself? My in-laws' lawyer calls me directly, trying to negotiate. Apparently, they want to drop the theft charges and work something out without involving the courts. Sure, I tell him. They can pay my invoice in full plus my legal fees for having to pursue this matter. Then we can talk about dropping charges. He sputters something about how that's unreasonable, but I cut him off. What's unreasonable, I say, is stealing tools from someone who just spent 3 days fixing your client's roof for free. What's unreasonable is calling that theft payment and acting like they were doing me a favor. Your clients made their choice when they decided to keep my property. Now they get to live with the consequences. The lawyer tries a few more angles: family harmony, Christian forgiveness, the whole guilt trip playbook. But I've been dealing with manipulative in-laws for years, and I'm immune to their tactics by now. Here's the deal, I tell him. Your clients have 48 hours to pay the invoice, or I'm adding late fees and interest charges, and the theft charges stand regardless. 47 hours later, I get a cashier's check for the full amount. But wait, it gets better. Remember how I mentioned my insurance company paid me for the stolen tools? Well, since the tools were recovered undamaged, they didn't need to replace them. But I'd already been compensated for the theft, so by law, I had to return the insurance money, right? Wrong. Turns out, my policy includes something called theft trauma coverage, which compensates victims for the emotional distress and inconvenience of having their property stolen by people they trusted. It's designed for situations exactly like this one, so I keep the insurance money, plus I get paid for the roofing work, plus my in-laws get to explain to everyone at their church why they got arrested for stealing from their daughter-in-law. The whole thing wraps up about 2 months later. My in-laws plead guilty to misdemeanor theft charges, get community service and probation, and have to pay court costs. The felony charges got reduced because they returned the stolen property, but they still have criminal records now. My husband and I are actually doing better than ever. Seeing his parents' true colors finally convinced him to set some serious boundaries. We don't visit them anymore, they're not invited to family gatherings, and my husband told them point blank that until they make genuine amends for what they did, they're not welcome in our lives. As for me, well, I used the money to completely upgrade my tool collection. We're talking about a professional-grade setup that would make any contractor jealous. I also started a small side business doing roofing repairs, and business is booming thanks to word-of-mouth recommendations. The best part, though? Every time I use those tools, I think about my in-laws and smile. They thought they were stealing from me, but they actually did me the biggest favor of my life. Their greed and entitlement exposed exactly who they are, forced my husband to finally stand up to them, and ended up making me several $1,000s richer. Sometimes I wonder if they realize that their brilliant plan to steal my tools backfired so spectacularly. They went from having a daughter-in-law who would literally climb on their roof and fix their house for free, to having criminal records and being cut off from their son's family. And me? I went from being the family doormat to being financially compensated for years of putting up with their nonsense. Their lawyer was right about one thing. This whole situation definitely brought out everyone's true character. My advice to anyone dealing with similar family drama? Document everything, know your worth, and never let anyone convince you that being family gives them the right to treat you poorly. Some people only respect boundaries when those boundaries come with legal consequences. I'm sitting here now cold, beer in hand, looking at my beautiful new tool collection, and I can honestly say I've never been happier. Sometimes the trash takes itself out, and sometimes it even pays you for the privilege. So here's to my in-laws. Thanks for teaching me that my kindness has value, that my skills are worth money, and that standing up for myself feels a whole lot better than being a doormat. Y'all really did make me richer, just not in the way you intended.